Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Dan Hiscock, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Lieutenant Colonel Scott Holmes. This evening, we are honoured to acknowledge Dr. Susan Newhouse, Member of the Council of the Australian War Memorial. We warmly welcome the Royal Australian Regiment delegation attending as part of their commemorations of the 75th anniversary of the formation of the regiment. The delegation comprised of the finalists for the Australian Army's Hassett Award, which each year recognises the most outstanding junior leader in each of the Royal Australian Regiment's battalions, and Mr Walter Robinson, President of the Canberra Vale Diggers Club, and the accompanying delegation. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Service Clubs Association, and we welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Sacré-Cœur from Glen Iris in Victoria. If you're able, I invite you to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Thank you. If you wish to and you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read just one of the stories behind those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Eric Harding Chinner. Eric Chinner was born on the 15th of January 1894 at Peterborough, South Australia, one of 7 children born to local draper and politician Thomas Chinner and his wife Sarah. Young Eric received his education at Prince Alfred College in Adelaide, where he was a keen athlete and a member of the school's cadets program. He went on to find employment as a clerk at the Bank of Adelaide and joined the local militia, parading part-time and earning the rank of lieutenant. Eric also played on the local football team and sang in the men's choir, becoming known as a talented singer. When the First World War broke out in 1914, Eric Chinner did not hesitate to enlist. He joined the Australian Imperial Force on the 8th of August 1914 and was selected for officers' training. He attended the Royal Military College Duntroon for 3 months before travelling to Randwick, where he undertook a 2-week course at the machine gun school. In October 1915, he was commissioned to the rank of 2nd Lieutenant and joined the 32nd Battalion. He embarked for service from Adelaide later that month, sailing on board the troop ship Geelong. When Chinner arrived in Egypt in mid-December, the fighting on Gallipoli was drawing to a close. By the end of the month, the Allies had abandoned the campaign and troops were being evacuated from the peninsula and returned to Egypt. Having missed the fighting on Gallipoli, Chinner was sent to an officers' training school at Zaytoun in March of 1916 and proved to be a keen student. Graduating at the top of his class, he was promoted to First Lieutenant. 3 months later, he embarked for the Western Front, arriving in the French port city of Marseille on the 23rd of June 1916. Chinner's unit was sent north to the Franco-Belgian border, which had been the site of bitter fighting. Now comparatively quiet, this portion of the front became known as the nursery sector, where new troops were introduced to life in the trenches. Shortly after his arrival, Lieutenant Chinner was sent to a nearby school of instruction. He returned to his battalion on the 9th of July 1916 and 10 days later was drawn into the fighting at the French village of Fromelles. The battle was intended as a feint to prevent German reserves from moving south to take part in the Battle of the Somme. Ordered to attack strongly fortified enemy positions near the Aubers Ridge, the Allied advance, preceded by a 7-hour bombardment, was designed to destroy the German front line and allow the troops to take their objectives largely unopposed. When the battle began in broad daylight, advancing units quickly realised that not only had the artillery been ineffective, but it had also served to warn the enemy of an impending attack. As they jumped the parapet, Allied troops were cut down in waves by murderous machine gun and artillery fire from German troops who had taken cover during the bombardment. Lieutenant Chinner, who was in charge of the 32nd Battalion's bombing party, was shot through the wrist while attempting to throw a grenade. The wound caused him to drop the bomb, which exploded, killing him instantly. Though some men made it to their objective, they were forced to withdraw and were again caught under heavy fire during the retreat. By the time the battle was called off, the 5th Division had suffered over 5,000 casualties in an attack which has been remembered as the worst 24 hours in Australia's history. Among the dead was Lieutenant Eric Chinner. Lieutenant Chinner's final resting place remained unknown for over 90 years. It was not until 2008, when a mass grave was discovered at Pheasant Wood, just outside of Fromelles, that Chinner's resting place was uncovered. It contained the remains of 250 Allied soldiers who were killed during the attack on Fromelles in July 1916. The bodies were exhumed and tested against DNA samples from descendants to ascertain the names of those buried there. Among those identified was Lieutenant Eric Chinner. Chinner was given a military funeral on the 19th of July 2010 and was reinterred at Pheasant Wood Cemetery in Fromelles. His remains lie there today, beneath the words selected by his family. Matchless son and brother, ever tenderly cherished in our hearts. Lieutenant Eric Chinner was 22 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed by the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Eric Harding Chinner, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We'll leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. Wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.